It is the Underdog Superflex Big Board Draft. But in this draft, Shawn, our goal was to draft as many rookies. Well, not as many rookies as possible, but it is Superflex. We were hoping to go and get ourselves that top-end quarterback and then go and wait all the way out to get some of those rookies, because we expect them to get first-round capital, most of them, and then obviously that will probably lead to them playing it this season. So that was the goal. We did go heavy with rookies throughout the draft. We ended up, I believe, Shawn, there's 7 in there out of the 20 draft picks that we have are rookies. So it's going to be fun to go through it. But what we kind of did at quarterback was we started off from the 104 slot. We got ourselves Lamar Jackson. And then we sealed off kind of the other onesie kind of position that would be looking to target with an elite option. That was Travis Kelce in the second round at tight end. And then we also, and this wasn't really our approach in our plan, Shawn, to start the draft off, but we waited then for rookies at the tight end position as well. So backing ourselves up there with Trey McBride later in the draft and Dulich as well then in the last round. So a real fun draft. Probably more heavy running back than listeners would be expecting us to have. What I would say is we're not going to dive specifically into our team on this roster. We are going to look at other teams on the podcast rather. But as a whole, Shawn, our roster, what we attempted to set out to do and get all those rookie quarterbacks and how it turned out, I know this is something that we had talked about a few times, potentially attempting. How did it work in execution?
Yeah, it turned into a dream draft, right? We were able to get those 3 rookies. And I don't think it was 7. I think it was 9. I think you're missing the 2 rookie tight ends that we drafted in rounds 19 and 20 to get the 9 there total. The other rookies were a matter of value at that spot, right? So it's not necessarily a matter of targeting rookies specifically, but you want wide range of outcomes players and you want good value on those players. We feel like we got that. The rookies, that was definitely something we set out to do because we believe those guys are undervalued. It was interesting here to look through the draft, and every other team had their QB2 by the end of round 5. We didn't take ours until round 13. And then obviously the goal is to have some volume because we don't know which ones of those players are going to definitely play early enough to make it work. You have the foundation piece of Lamar Jackson, but you're going to need that second QB in this format, right? And so we take the 3 players, we get Corral, Ritter, and Howell. It's not a guarantee that you can execute this. I tried this once more this weekend instead of by myself, and Ritter went a little bit early, and then that throws things off, right? But in this one, we were able to get all 3 of those guys. You don't necessarily want the 4 QBs in this format, but if you get the 3 QBs late, then you're able to balance that out with the value that you get at the other positions. So this was a lot of fun, very exciting. It was perfectly the way that it worked. We'll now see where those guys actually go on draft weekend and whether or not we think that they're going to be able to play early enough to make that pan out. But Colm, in terms of what our goal was, it was magical then to see the execution. And obviously that to do that, you're going to need a little bit of luck. And we got that as well. We were taking those guys a little bit ahead of ADP, but that obviously doesn't mean that somebody else can't jump in there as well and get those players. There was obviously a couple of choices that also came with selecting those players. And you've kind of noted a few of these. When we took how Gerald Everett was still on the board, he does go a few picks after that. So we weren't able to get him as the second tight end. That left us with the 2 rookies at the very end. A couple of the other interesting choices, when we selected J.K. Dobbins, we were sort of split between Dobbins and DJ Moore. He went a couple of picks afterward. And then when we took Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that was really where the tight ends that we were also looking at went kind of in this next gap with Albert O, Gesicki, and Freiermuth coming off the board. Then we take Kenny Golladay. We went heavy at running back, and so we were looking for some wide receiver followers. Golladay, far beyond where he probably should be. Obviously, the fact that he goes there pretty consistently means that the community does have him pegged at that spot. But when you look at the potential for the Giants to really improve, and you look at some of the other veterans that fantasy managers are betting on, Golladay a better risk-adjusted selection there than some of the players who are more expensive and probably have more risk attached to them. So we make that pick, but then the rest of the tight ends go. That leaves us with the rookie tight ends late. Because we had Travis Kelce as our second round pick, I still really like that. So Colm, this draft, a lot of fun. We did take those 4 consecutive running backs after the Jackson Kelce dig start, and then we did add CEH to them. So we have 5 running backs we're hoping to really make an impact. You've got to fill those 2 running back spots, and then the running backs are very viable in the flex in this format. Now, because you lose one of the wide receiver spots in the super flex, that means wide receivers fill the flex even more easily, and yet at the same time, you're not going to be in this situation where you're starting 4 wide receivers unless you end up having to go a wide receiver into the super flex. Again, obviously not ideal with the way QBs are likely to score compared to the other positions. I like the way that this draft played out with the rookie QBs, but I also really like a lot of the other selections, and I like the balance within this team.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a couple of spots I will get your thoughts on as we look back through it. But you mentioned a couple of good things. Listeners off RotoViz Overtime will be very used to us drafting in the FFPC leagues, which are tight end premium, but then they are also a full point PPR, whereas Underdog is half point PPR. And then some changes to the eligibilities for flex positions means that we did go with more of those running back picks. But a couple of players that we kind of hemmed and hawed about, we were talking about trying to get that second tight end. You mentioned it there. Alberto being a target, Fairmouth, Gesicki, possible options. And then obviously a little bit later, Everett was an option. And then the round after the Alberto selection, it looked at that point like we had kind of 4 or 5 tight ends in our queue we were interested in. And within 3 picks, kind of 3 of the guys we wanted went after that CEH pick. And then when we got to the Galladay selection shortly after that, Tonyan and Komet went. So there was a lot of movement at the tight end position at that point. But we did touch on it in the draft show, but CEH and Rojo went within 2 to 3 picks of each other in this draft. And we've talked about both of them a few times, trying to get, some of them on different rosters. But do you think in this case, it's just a case that Edwards-Helaire was going too late, and that's why we made that selection to go with him over Rojo? Or was there any point in your mind that you would have thought of swapping that around and taking Rojo over Edwards-Helaire?
I have these 2 backs pretty even. And so it's a matter of trying to get a little bit of Edwards-Helaire exposure and probably mostly Rojo exposure as the cheaper back. However, he's so electric in a half PPR format. You can easily see why they would be drafted together. I mentioned that in the FFPC draft that Zach and I are doing, they were drafted very close together. I think with the struggles that Edwards-Helaire has had, even with the weird season that Jones just completed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, his overall profile, and I think the enthusiasm that people have for seeing him run in this offense with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and the upside that's there, I think these guys are going to continue to rise. And maybe it's just a matter that Rojo continues to rise. It ends up being pretty expensive again, and we don't get the discount that we're hoping for. He's going to be one of those backs who's a lot of fun, because when we're looking back at the 2020 season here, in 7-8 months, it's likely to be a situation where we're saying, well, we won in spite of all those Rojo shares, and Rojo's a good luck charm, even though he doesn't score any points himself. Or it's a situation where we look back and he was the guy who won all the leagues, that he's this year's Rashad Penny, he's this year's Devin Singletary, the player who absolutely blows up and scores a ton of points during the fantasy playoffs. We're not going to be the only people thinking that. And so his price may end up being a little problematic as we go through draft season.
Yeah, and you are right as well. I just had a quick check back through it for the rookies. 9 out of the 20 picks being rookies. So it's going to be fun for us looking through the draft, seeing how it goes. And some of these guys, if they do get that, bump a round or multiple rounds, this team could be looking really, really interesting in a couple of weeks' time. So running through the rookies that we did take again in this particular draft, we have Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks, we have Corral, Ritter, and Howell at the quarterback position. We have McBride, then we have Pierre Strong, we have Tyler Algier, and then we have Dulcich at tight end to wrap things up. So hopefully, Shawn, this is one that we will be talking about come the end of the season that has helped us win some big prize money. $50,000, the top prize in this one. So hopefully we can chase that one down. Did you enjoy that clip? Make sure you hit that subscribe button to get more content from RotoViz. And of course, you can check out full-length podcasts at rotoviz.com/podcast. Available on all podcast platforms. Check out our wide range of content. Once again, rotoviz.com/podcast.